It's February Black History Month and DEI is front and center. If you missed part 1 of this multi-series, I've put the link to that video in the description below, and I will add it to the end card of this video for those who would like to view some of the opinions that oppose HR8706, also known as the Dismantle DEI Act. If we lived in a perfect world, it would stand to reason there would be no need for DEI, which stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. People would be hired by qualifications only, but we don't live in a perfect world, so practices like DEI try to level the playing field. DEI tries to give qualified people who are often disqualified because of race, gender, sexual orientation, or disabilities a better chance of being hired and recognized. Proponents of DEI emphasize this in their arguments, and because it has been a point of contention with the Trump administration, Democrats are quick to point out how unqualified Trump's cabinet appointees are and how hypocritical this proposed bill is. From the Republicans' view, DEI is reverse racism because they don't recognize systemic racism or think there is any bias when it comes to hiring decisions. Let's look at this side of the argument, starting out with the sponsor of the bill, Representative Michael Cloud, a Republican representing the 27th District of Texas.
In support of the Cloud bill. Now recognize the sponsor of the bill, Mr. Cloud from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are 3 words that don't necessarily mean what we think they mean. And in spite of the altruistic motives of some of the purveyors of it, diversity, equity, inclusion, as it's been initiated in our federal government as an ideology, seeks to categorize individuals based on their immutable characteristics. It is a rejection of the principles that people should be judged on the content of their character and their individual achievement rather than their sex, race, national origin, or ethnicity. DEI is a huge step backwards for our country. It has taken generations, not to mention a civil war, a civil rights movement, to move past a stain on our nation's history. But we have made tremendous progress. But to codify discrimination in an effort to remove discrimination is a woeful initiative and would undo generations of progress we have made as a nation on this. Every tear, every drop of blood, the sweat of our founders, our forefathers that have fallen would be in vain for us to continue and to reverse the path that we have. True justice is blind. It should not consider race or sex. And it's the duty of us as lawmakers to write just laws, and it's the duty of the executive branch to be just in administering them without deference to race, creed, religion. Yet the Biden administration has pushed through DEI initiatives into every policy and government department. What this bill seeks to do is really 3 things. It seeks to close the DEI offices that have been set up in virtually every single agency. And as well, this federal government has pushed these policies and sort of force-fed them on the American population by requiring that anyone who does business with the federal government, contractors, also have to adhere to these DEI policies, as well as the grant writing process. So this would write what may be a well-intended policy, but has done great harm to our country. It's been very divisive. A new report from Do No Harm counted 500 DEI actions that the Biden administration took place or planned to take. DEI ideology simply does not work and only serves to divide our country. DEI ideology also results in absurd government-funded programs, and it's been a complete waste of taxpayer dollars and is dangerous, as sometimes people who do not have the competencies to carry out the job are placed in jobs for DEI reasons. It is time for us to unwind this bureaucratic initiative and to restore a functioning government that does not give preference to race, sex, or any of these characteristics. Thank you, Chairman.
Would the gentleman yield for
And
a
I yield
question?
back.
Now, in a perfect world, what Mr. Cloud just explained would be good reason, but that's the problem. We don't live in a perfect world. In fact, if we lived in a perfect world, DEI would have never been created. Let's take a look at House member Clay Higgins, Republican, who represents the 3rd District of Louisiana.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Higgins from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, I'm an original co-sponsor of this bill, and I've noted some of the comments here, and I believe we should take a step back and ask ourselves, you know, what do we seek in our republic regarding individual rights, liberties, and freedoms? I mean, do you believe in those core tenets of our republic or not? We have an opportunity before us with this bill to push back against it. The ranking member mentioned a sweeping attack. Yes, this is what we have suffered. We have suffered as a nation a sweeping attack against equality. That's exactly what we're fighting against. Another colleague mentioned oppression and degradation. It's exactly what we're pushing back against. This is a bill that eliminates government-sponsored oppression of individual rights, liberties, and freedoms in the land of the free. Freedom of opportunity, not result. So I support the bill, Mr. Chairman. It is quite simply a strong response to the oppression of our individual rights, liberties, and freedoms as Americans, regardless of color or creed or political affiliation or where you stand upon the economic strata, what your background is or your heritage. All of us should be counted as Americans equal as we move forward through the course of our life on our journey, and we should not face obstructions that are baked into our government bureaucracies that exclude citizens strictly based upon their color, their heritage, their creed. This removes those oppressions. Mr. Chairman, I yield to you, good sir, to balance of my time.
Let's take a look at what Jasmine Crockett, who represents the 30th District of Texas, says in response to her Republicans' responses.
Okay, Ms. Crockett.
So many of you know that I practice law, but some of you don't realize that I actually was a business major out of Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. And the emphasis that I got in my business degree was on finance. And as I traveled the country campaigning this election cycle, one of the things that I talked about was this idea that in finance, we always promote this idea of diversity. If you know anything about a portfolio, the one thing that you want to do is make sure that it's as diverse as possible, because at times certain stocks will perform better than others, and they will exemplify various strengths and weaknesses. And together, a diverse portfolio is usually what any good finance person would promote. They wouldn't promote that you solely invest in vanilla wafers, believing that that is going to be the strongest portfolio, but instead they may want to add some chocolate cake and some Twinkies into the mix to make sure that we have the best portfolio, because there will be different preferences by different people, and again, there will be different strengths. But as I sit here and I think about what we say and what I'm hearing as it relates to diversity when it comes to anything outside of making money, and to be clear, we are losing GDP every time we try to push back on this idea of diversity, because all of us bring something different to the table. But you consistently said over and over the word oppression, and every time that you said it, it was almost as if I was hearing nails on a chalkboard, because it seems like you don't understand the definition of oppression, and I'd ask you to just refer to Google to help you out. Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. That is the definition of oppression. And so as I sit here as a black woman who practiced civil rights, let me tell you the reason that my colleagues wanted to make sure you understood the same black history that your side of the aisle wants to delete out of classrooms is because you can then misuse words like oppression. There has been no oppression for the white man in this country. You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here. We not the same migrants that y'all constantly come up against. We didn't run away from home. We were stolen. So yeah, we are going to sit here and be offended when you want to sit here and act like, and don't let it escape you that it is white men on this side of the aisle telling us, people of color on this side of the aisle, that y'all are the ones being oppressed, that y'all are the ones that are being harmed. That's not the definition of oppression. You tell me the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment that you've had, and we can have a conversation.
You could start with Exodus.
The final thing that I will say on this particular issue, two things. There is an article from The Guardian, and it is a little old. It's from 2021, so I apologize. But it said that back then, just 3 years ago, white men represent 30% of the population, but 62% of office holders. These are the issues that we are constantly looking at and recognizing and trying to say, is this just? I can't even tell you how many white men have served in this chamber, but I can tell you that I am only the 55th black woman to be elected to Congress. And so when you want to talk about history and pretend as if it was so long ago, it wasn't. Because again, I am just number 55. Finally, when we start to talk about what do these numbers do as we're trying to say the diversity, equity, and inclusion is the problem, the reality is that when it comes to financial performance, companies with more diverse workforces are more likely to outperform their competitors. Companies in the top quartile for racial diversity are 35% more likely to outperform their peers on profitability. Companies with diverse executive teams are 25% more likely to generate greater profits. Diverse companies earn 2.5 times higher cash flow per employee. Diversity works. And until you can show me data that says otherwise, I think that we need to go back to being a country that listens to experts and gets out of our feelings and recognizes, again, that racism is real in this country. And until we stop pretending that it's not, we will not solve the problems that we are consistently facing. And that will bring real unity that we seek when we're looking for a more perfect union.
The problem with dismantling DEI is that the idea does not account for the United States we live in. It does not account for the racism, misogyny, homophobia, disableism, and ableism that exists now. Without a better way to tackle these issues, does it benefit our society to remove policies that aim to help the people who face the discrimination? Do white straight men lose much of anything by allowing DEI to exist? It is more detrimental to eliminate DEI for the folks who can gain from it than it is to eliminate it for the sake of the privileged who no longer want it to exist. Another misnomer is that when a DEI qualified person is hired, the person is automatically not qualified, as if being white and straight and a man makes you instantly qualified. We have nepotism, where people related to someone are hired. Does that mean the person is the most qualified person for the job? We have legacy situations where people are admitted to prestigious universities because family members went to the same school or donated a lot of money to an institution which grants them admission. When this happens, are they the most qualified to have received that benefit? We have people who get dismissed or lighter sentences that are sealed or expunged because of who they know or the lawyer they can afford to hire. Again, I ask, is it more detrimental to eliminate DEI for the folks who can gain from it than it is to eliminate it for the sake of the privileged who no longer want it to exist. How many straight white men are not afforded jobs because DEI exists versus how many DEI qualified people will be hurt if DEI is eliminated? I would love to hear your views of DEI and if you approve or oppose HR 8706. Please leave a comment below. Let's put more love into the world and let's stop focusing on our differences. Go to my website, merchgorilla.com, to get these shirts that represent love and focus on being a decent human being when it's all said and done. Each sale supports this channel. The link is in the description below. Let's stay informed and keep our eyes on Congress. If you do not know who your House of Representative is, I will provide a link in the description below that takes you to a website where you enter your zip code to find out who your representative is. Subscribe to How Congress Voted to get important updates on what's going on inside the walls of Congress and to track your congressperson so you are better informed when it comes time to vote. Like, share, and subscribe.